When we are conscious, our minds are flooded with thoughts. How do we acquire this consciousness? And where do these thoughts come from? In this short video, we will attempt to answer the question of the origin of consciousness and its relationship with God. We will also explore the concept of free will. Additionally, we will address the question of evil. Why does evil exist if God is in absolute control?
Materialistic science explains the origin of consciousness as an emergent property of complex neural processes in the brain. According to this view, consciousness arises from the interactions of billions of neurons and their connections, which process information, generate thoughts, and produce subjective experiences. Pure materialism argues that every thought must have a physical cause. However, it struggles to explain the spontaneity of thoughts. That means how thoughts can seemingly arise out of nowhere when every thought is supposed to have a physical trigger or cause in the brain. Historically, dualism offers a potential solution to the problem of spontaneous thought generation. In dualism, the soul is seen as an independent, non-material entity that can generate thoughts autonomously without needing a physical cause in the brain. This allows for the possibility that thoughts can arise from the soul itself, rather than being strictly tied to physical brain processes. However, this view is often undermined by materialistic scientists. Dualism, by its nature, posits the existence of a non-material soul that cannot be directly observed or measured. Furthermore, advances in neuroscience have shown strong correlations between brain activity and mental states. For example, specific brain injuries can lead to predictable changes in behavior or consciousness, suggesting that mental processes are closely tied to physical brain activity. This evidence has led many to conclude that the mind is not separate from the brain, as dualism suggests. So, both the materialistic explanation and dualism are problematic. What is the truth here? In this video, we will visualize the mind as a multi-component system that possesses both physical and metaphysical elements, much like dualism posits. However, our view differs slightly from strict dualism, which suggests that only the soul and body are involved in human consciousness. We believe there are more metaphysical components involved in human consciousness than just the soul. Apart from this, according to our view, the soul and body are integrated in such a way that they can't individually produce a consciousness measurable by the external world. The structure of the mind consists of the following components. The consciousness related to self-awareness, through which we interact with the external world, is a product of the integration of the soul and the organic cage. The organic cage is the physical structure of the brain. The organic cage alone cannot maintain consciousness if the soul is absent. Without a soul, the organic cage is inert, as seen in death. The soul provides dynamism in the function of the organic cage and serves as an extra coordinating factor in the function of neurons. On the other hand, without an organic cage, the soul cannot originate a consciousness measurable by external agents. So to produce a consciousness measurable by external world, soul and organic cage work in integrated manner and they remain inseparable and complementary while performing their functions. Defects in the organic cage, such as in head injuries, may render the soul incapable of sustaining a consciousness that can be measured by external world. The organic cage is necessary to express the soul's consciousness to the external world. However, the soul has an inherent consciousness which can be maintained without the organic cage. Only God perceives it, not the external world. The God is an integral part of human consciousness and contributes to the thoughts in the human mind, as will be discussed later. The soul remains connected to God even after the physical death of the organic cage. Therefore, the soul is not redundant. It is a non-material and metaphysical component, and explaining its interaction with the organic cage is beyond the scope of materialistic science. The soul is involved in the spontaneous generation of thoughts from within. There are 4 layers of thought in our mind. Involuntary thoughts. Satanic whisper. Divine inspiration. Voluntary thoughts. Involuntary thoughts are those that arise in our minds without conscious effort or intention. A thought might suddenly pop into our heads without any clear connection to our current environment or prior thoughts. Materialistic science struggles to explain how such spontaneity arises purely from deterministic or automatic brain processes. It is reasonable to think that the soul is involved in the spontaneous generation of these thoughts. As the soul is involved, these thoughts are perceived as our own, even when they are unpleasant, and the soul's involvement explains the subjective quality of these thoughts. Shaitans are imperceptible beings and a type of negative energy that can generate evil thoughts in the human mind. They invite humans to commit sins by suggesting evil plans. Though the owner of the thought is Shaitan, it is perceived as the human's own thought. This concealment of the owner's identity is intentional. God's will can be transmitted to the human mind, and God is always aware of what a human is thinking. This is how God maintains absolute control over every human and how everyone remains connected to God. Although the owner of these thoughts is God, they are also perceived as the human's own thoughts. This concealment of the owner's identity is intentional. Voluntary thoughts are those we deliberately choose to think about. They are closely linked to the concept of free will. The idea that individuals have the capacity to make choices and control their actions independently of external determinism or internal compulsion. When engaging in voluntary thinking, we exercise this capacity by consciously directing our thoughts and making decisions. Voluntary thoughts allow us to reflect on our actions, consider moral dilemmas, and make ethical choices. Free will has been put on trial by God. How is this trial conducted? Imagine a case where an evil desire arises as part of an involuntary thought. Then, satanic whispers begin, inviting the human to convert the evil desire into real action. Satanic whisper contains planning to complete the action. Here, if the human seeks the God's protection from the satanic whisper, the God will prevent the human from committing the sin. But if the human agrees to the satanic whisper and rejects God, they will be allowed to complete the sinful action, for which they will be punished twice. Once by human judges and again by God in hell. If a soul thinks of doing good, the God will reward it. This is how the God has put every soul under trial. If you reject the satanic whispers that originate in your mind, you will be rewarded on the day of judgment. This discussion also answers the question of why there is evil if God is in absolute control. To conduct the trial on the human soul, God has to conceal many things. God's interference in the human mind and his awareness of human thoughts are hidden from human perception, just as Shaitan's interaction with the human mind is similarly hidden. The presence of both Shaitans and God is concealed from human detection. If these things were not hidden, humans would not allow their souls to be tested. This concealment is intentional, and materialistic science cannot reveal it. Materialistic science has limitations beyond which it cannot be applied. One of the biggest challenges for dualism is explaining how a non-material soul could interact with the physical body. This interaction problem has been a point of criticism because it remains unclear how something non-physical could influence physical processes without violating the laws of physics. Dualism does not provide a clear mechanism for soul-body interaction, which is a significant issue for a theory seeking acceptance in the scientific community. However, as we discussed earlier, God has purposefully concealed these interactions. Should we expect materialistic science to disclose this concealment? Dreams can arise from any component of the mind discussed above, except it can't be induced voluntarily by human. Dreams can arise involuntary or can be deliberately induced by God or by satanic whispers. The interaction of a drug with the organic cage can also cause dreams as part of involuntary thoughts. Diseases can occur due to defects in the organic cage, corruption of the soul, or satanic whispers. Science has failed to consider the role of all these components as sources of disease. Materialistic science's focus has been on diseases resulting from organic cage only. Finally, it is important to note that from Allah, humans receive the cure for the diseases of their souls. The Quran mentions that through the remembrance of Allah, hearts are assured.